It's divisional playoff weekend and our last show for the 22 season. We'll go out with a bang. As Sal Pao has everything, Eagles, Giants. Pat Leonard on how Big Blue has turned it around. Sean Green has all your wager numbers for divisional weekend. And Tom Brady and the Zebras as talked to by Gary Myers. We'll do all that next on This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football. A deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to This Week in Pro Football for the Divisional Weekend. Pat Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports. Please give me a follow on Twitter at TWIPFPat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports on Twitter. And it's great to be here with you for what is, unfortunately, our final show of the 22 season. It's Divisional Playoff Weekend, what has long been regarded as the best football weekend of the year. And four pretty good games. At least three, I think, really good games on the slate this weekend. I'd have preferred seeing the Chargers in Kansas City, but after that collapse, I guess how can you really do that? Jacksonville and Dougie P getting the Jaguars into the second round against Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs. And that should, I hope that's a good game. Chiefs are over a touchdown favorite. How did everybody get here? Well, just a quick look back at last week. Certainly Seattle, as we talked about last week, they didn't belong there, and they proved it. They had actually had a lead at halftime and were absolutely trounced in the second half of their loss to San Francisco. The Saturday night game I just mentioned, the LA Chargers, unbelievable, 27-0, and they managed to lose to the Jaguars. Just a hard to get over. That's a hard one to get over if you're an LA Charger. It'll be interesting to see as next year develops whether the Chargers have a lasting hangover from a collapse like that. The Giants in Minnesota, we'll talk about the Giants extensively in the next 60 minutes. A terrific effort by the Giants as they go into Minnesota and defeat the Vikings. And then the Sunday night game, the Ravens fought way harder. I give Sal Pao credit for that. He said that the Ravens could win that game, and they really, you could almost make the case they should have won the game. A nice effort by Ty Huntley, played well, and some clock mismanagement, a disastrous mistake at the 1 yard line, and then a failed referee non-call all contributed to the Ravens losing that game. They still came within an inch of tying the game at the very end. The Monday night game was a disaster, just a disaster for the now 8-10 Buccaneers as the Cowboys. We talked about it last week. They were horrendous in that loss to Washington. No residual effect from that. They were on all cylinders as they demolished Tampa Bay on Monday night. Let's get Vince Lombardi out here, Xander, and talk about what the hell is going on out there. Does anybody really know what time it is? The reason why I mentioned that is, again, we see it. I've talked about it all season long. 23 assistant coaches seemingly on every team, and yet no one can seemingly figure out how much time's left in the game, what the down and distance is. Some egregious examples from Miami was incredible in the fourth quarter of that loss to Buffalo, a 34-31 loss in which somehow Coach Mike McDaniel, at least as he told the press after the game, thought a 4th and 1 was actually a 1st and 10. I mean, how can you possibly make that mistake? And yet the Miami Dolphins made it, blew all kinds of time off the clock. And then on a crucial 4th and 1, they actually take a delay. A game turns into a 4th and 6. They lose the game to Buffalo. It's just as well, gang. My father always said this, and he was right. You don't want that 7 seed creeping into the next round and absolutely polluting the divisional weekend. So it's just as well Miami went down because they'd be dead fish at Kansas City this week. So, and then at Baltimore, I mentioned it briefly in the game. The Ravens at a crucial point in the fourth quarter of that game let 33 seconds run off the clock because they wanted to preserve that last timeout. Well, how'd that work out, guys? Just save the time. Don't save the timeout. Save the time. But nobody can seemingly figure that out. I mentioned the call, or the non-call in that game Sunday night, in which Brock, it was, let me get this down here. It was a missed block in the back was just a killer on a 98-yard kickoff return. I'm sorry, 98-yard fumble return. And the ball right about the 30-yard line. And what an effort by Mark Andrews. He comes all the way down the field. And I think he might actually catch that defensive lineman. But they inexplicably, as Sam Hubbard was running for the touchdown, I think he got pushed in the back. I think he did. And yet no call. I don't know if it's because the officials were having trouble keeping up with Hubbard and Andrews, but no call was made. The touchdown stood. And that was it for the Ravens. And then the other call everybody saw in the Sunday afternoon game, a terrible call on Dexter Lawrence, who sacks Kirk Cousins and in no way falls on him. He did spin him around, but that's just physics. I mean, that's the way it is when you get two guys that combined 600 pounds. He spins him around, takes him to the ground, flag comes down. And it could have been a crucial play. It gave, instead of a third down and multiple yards, it gave the Vikings a first down. It did not pan out for Minnesota, and I'm glad, because you hate to see games decided on such egregiously blown calls. We'll talk to Gary Myers more about what the league might do about it near the end of the show. I mentioned about the Chargers. What are you going to do? They're the LA Chargers. They can't help it. They just can't help it. 27-0 with 33 seconds left in the half, and you managed to lose that game. I'm going to talk to Sal Paolantonio about this, but I'm going to talk to Sal as regards a number one seed. But the same kind of thing really exists here. You get up a ton of points, and instead of thinking, hey, how can we make this 37-0? You start thinking, let's just hold this lead. Let's get the hell out of here. End result, Jacksonville goes to Kansas City. It is a good weekend slate, as we talked about. Saturday afternoon, Jacksonville at Kansas City. Saturday night, well, it's a big game here. Philadelphia hosts the New York Giants. Just a tremendous amount of buzz about this game. I'm glad it's a Saturday night game, and it could be a big night down in South Philadelphia. Sunday, a terrific slate, 3:30. You got Buffalo hosting Cincinnati, and then at 6:30, you have San Francisco hosting Dallas, and that'll be a terrific couple of games on Sunday. All right, Xander, thanks very much for that. Why don't we bring in my first guest and my best guest of the weekend of the season here, and that would be the host of the NFL Matchup Show, national correspondent for ESPN, and Hall of Fame elector. That's Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing, pal?
And Pat, we just had our Hall of Fame selection committee meeting on Tuesday, so you will hear about the 2023 class soon enough from the Hall of Fame. So we're excited about that. I'm so excited about this weekend's games, especially in South Philadelphia. A little rumble in the jungle in South Philadelphia, Pat, on Saturday night. You know what? I love when Dexter Lawrence said, I told my mom, stay away, stay home. Don't go to the game.
How about that? Let me start here, Sal. We have a few minutes here before our first break. Let me start off with my theory, and I probably have posited this to you before, but to me, the Eagles have kind of, in the last, I'll say half of the season, have kind of dragged this number one seed around with them, and it's almost like a guy trying to win the Masters from start to finish.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, I think a number one seed starts to weigh on you. Is that the sense that you get as opposed to a Giants team that's a six seed and feeling its oats?
You know, number one seeds really haven't had that much success recently in the NFL playoffs. So there has to be some truth to that psychologically. And I think you compound that, Pat, by the great unknown of Jalen Hurts.
Right.
So, you know, when you have a great unknown of Jalen Hurts out, it's pretty clear. Here's what we know. We know that he's taken the restrictor plate off in practice, that he looks good. The ball has zip coming out of his hands, good velocity, good trajectory, nice spin, throwing the ball deep and accurate and on time. And they're practicing a lot of tempo on offense, which I think is a good thing, and we'll get to that in a second. He's moving around quickly. But the great unknown, Pat, is – if he gets hit, how does the shoulder respond?
Right.
That's the great unknown. And when you have that great unknown like that, the suspense and drama going into this game is incalculable. You cannot overlook it.
I know.
And you cannot overstate it. So while I think the other games are definitely good and interesting, I think this is, without a doubt, the marquee game because of that suspense.
Right. Just to dispense with the other injury issues, Avonte Maddox out for the Eagles. Lane Johnson, give me just a quick take. Do you think how close to 100% do you think Lane Johnson is, if at all?
That's something we'll have to watch, just like with Jalen Hurts. We will watch Jalen Hurts very closely in warmups and in the first quarter. We will watch Lane Johnson. Lateral movement is important for an offensive tackle.
Right.
And an abductor muscle goes from your groin area to your knee, and it's on the right side, which for a right tackle is also problematic. I'm sure he'll get a little happy juice, and he'll try to stay out there as long as possible in this football game. As Jalen Hurts will probably get a little shot in his shoulder as well to help him get through the football game. But, this is something we will definitely watch. And as for Hurts, you're going to watch for three specific things, right? So he led the NFL in the number of air yards his touchdown passes traveled, 31 yards. His 22 touchdown passes traveled an average of 31 yards. That's the longest in the NFL. So we're going to watch. Is he airing it out, Pat? Is he throwing the ball deep in the first quarter?
Right.
Number two, they designed 5 runs on average for Jalen Hurts. Just 5. You would think with all the running he did this year, it would be a lot more, right?
Yep.
It's only 5 design runs per game. That means the other runs are his decision in the run-pass option or the zone read.
Yeah, the zone read, right.
Zone read or run-pass option. It is his decision. With the run-pass option, he's looking at the linebacker. With the zone read, he's looking at the safety. Or he's following the blockers and the defensive end. Lots of different decisions for him to make. Is he going to be a willing participant in that? Or are we going to see him hand the ball off in designed runs to Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenny Gainwell? So I think in this game, we talked about it. After the Bears game, when he got hurt, and Sanders only had 11 carries, in this game, Sanders is going to have you watch, he'll have 22 to 25 carries in this game. I guarantee it.
All right, Sal, when we get back, I want to talk to you about another of my theories, being the first quarter theory and how important it is that the Eagles get off quickly. I want your thoughts on that. And also the Giants' maturing passing game and what other differences there are from this matchup versus the one of the Meadowlands in which the Eagles won handily. We're going to do all that, and we're going to go around the divisional weekend with Sal Powell when we get back here on This Week in Pro Football.
First Bank is a true community bank with offices located throughout eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Being a First Bank customer comes with access to personal bankers, ones who know you and your business almost as well as you do. Joe Calabro is a regional president at First Bank and has been a leader and a lender in the southeastern Pennsylvania market for over 30 years. Call their Westchester office, 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com. CantorNovakBeaver.com.
Cantor Novak Beaver and Pike is a full-service CPA firm with offices in PA and New Jersey, offering first-rate accounting, audit, and tax services. They focus on helping clients achieve their business and financial goals, from startup operation to long-term financial planning. For more information, call Terry Cantor or Dan Pike at 215-550-2954 or on the web at cnbpcpas.com.
Are you looking for a family-friendly fitness center in the heart of Bucks County? Spring Mill Athletic Club has programs and activities to offer the whole family for every age and season. Group classes, personal training, dance academy, summer camp, and more can be found at this non-intimidating environment. Come tour Spring Mill Athletic Club today and get a free 1-week trial membership. Visit us at springmillathletic.com for more information.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Hi, welcome back to This Week in Pro Football, a Divisional Weekend edition. Pat Callahan here with the great Sal Paolantonio. You can follow Sal on Instagram at Sal Pal ESPN. I got it, right? I got it.
You're going to get it, Pat. You're going to get it one of these days.
I got it. That's all that matters.
Sal Pal ESPN. That's the Instagram handle.
Right.
It's very Eagles-centric, as you know.
All right. My first quarter theory, Sal, I've probably told you this now 20-some years in a row. Is it, and it's an offshoot of my number 1 seed premise that I think, like, and a classic example is the 2007 game between the Cowboys and the Giants. The year the Giants won the Super Bowl was early in the first quarter. Amani Toomer caught a pass from Eli Manning, and off he goes, breaks a couple tackles, a 50-some yard touchdown, and the air just went right out of whatever air there was in the Cowboys building at the time, and the Giants went on to win the game. How important is it that the Eagles remind the Giants who the number 1 seed is in the first quarter?
I think it's critically important. The Eagles' defense is built on the Eagles' offense scoring first. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, Sal Pal, I mean, why in the world do they defer when they win the coin flip? I don't know, Pat. They do, and I don't get it. It's counterintuitive to the way they play football.
Right.
So I think it's very important for them to get up early. And the way to get up early is to take the boogeyman out of that psychology that you talked about early on. And that is to play tempo, no huddle. If the first drive is not consisted of no huddle 80% of the time, I'll be shocked. Get up to the line of scrimmage, and that's the way you defeat the psychological mindset, because you're in the moment of the game.
Right.
And if you listen to Shane Steichen, he gave a really interesting clue this week. I sent you that transcript.
Yep.
And he said, he was asked, why did you have so much success December 11th when you won 48-22?
Right.
And he said, because Jalen Hurts did a great job of processing what he saw from Wink Martindale's defense and getting out of the bad plays and getting into the good ones. And here's the key quote: we passed the ball well early in the game.
Yep.
We passed the ball well early in the game. And when the Eagles pass the ball well early in the game, they're undefeated.
Yep. Yeah, I think, Sal, that's an excellent point. And what you sent to me there is true, what Steichen is saying. I thought it was probably Hurts' best game. And then the way he executed, just blew them out in the first quarter and let the Giants know it wasn't their day. Now, Sal, this is a
and they ran on it. But the Giants, they're a different team. I just covered them in Minneapolis.
Say that, yeah.
Yes, they're a different team, Pat.
Yeah, you got Hodgins, Slayton, and James, 3 guys whose names no one would have known halfway through the season. 16 catches, 224 yards last week against Minnesota. You know what else was notable, Sal? Saquon Barkley only had 14 touches in that game last week against Minnesota. So has the Giants offense matured that quickly? And do you see them, do you see the Giants passing game being a possible big factor Saturday night?
First 6 to 8 weeks, the Giants offense was a Saquon Barkley offense.
Right.
The last 7 to 9 weeks, it has been a Daniel Jones offense. He's had the highest QBR of any quarterback in the NFL in the last 5 weeks of the season. That's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
That is pretty good. And you mentioned, so remember Brady now, Tom Brady. Let's make a comparison. How many Tom Brady's wide receivers are going to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Yeah, really not that many. You know,
No,
he raised the level. I mean, Randy Moss was a built-in Hall of Famer when he got there.
Right.
Maybe Julian Edelman has a shot. And, of course, Rob Gronkowski is a tight end.
I agree with you.
Of wide receivers. So let's look at the Isaiah Hodgins example. He's played 8 games. He has 42 catches for 351 yards in 8 games. Saquon Barkley only has 338 yards in 16 games receiving.
Yeah.
So he's already eclipsed
Saquon
Barkley in the passing game. I'm telling you, Isaiah Hodgins, I got to look up his number 18. Watch for number 18 in this game. He is going to be important for this football game. No question.
So where, Sal, at this point, with the way the two teams come into this game, where do the Eagles have a decided edge over the Giants in terms of the Eagles 22 and the Giants 22?
Yeah, I think it has to be secondary, although Adoree Jackson being back and Xavier Kenny, and Julian Love is playing very, very well. So the secondary for the Eagles, those two corners, I want to see specifically how Dallas Goedert does in this game. So I'm talking about ball out, ball out, ball out. So the Giants gave up the highest completion percentage to tight ends this year, 77%, and the highest yards per attempt to tight ends, 8.5, because they leave the middle of the field open most of the time when they blitz. They blitz more than any other team. So to me, Dallas Goedert, believe it or not, is, I think, going to be huge in this football game.
You can certainly make that. You mentioned the two guys, Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert. I think Dable's going to blitz all night long, Sal.
Sure.
I think he kind of got away with it last week. He didn't really do it that much. As a matter of fact, on that deciding play, he was getting good penetration from his front four. He didn't need to do it. Hopefully, he doesn't get that kind of penetration against the Eagles' offensive line.
Yep.
But you mentioned Hurts gets rid of the ball fast, and that's a guy he can get rid of it fast to, is Dallas Goedert, right?
Yep, and Dexter Lawrence had a great game because he just manhandled Garrett Bradbury, the center, who had just come back for his first game after a long injury.
Right.
Dexter Lawrence did not have a great game when the Eagles played December 11th up at MetLife Stadium. He had no pressures against Jason Kelce and Landon Dickerson. So it's a difference. I think the interior of the Eagles' offensive line is a big strength. Right. I think the corners are a big strength, without a doubt. I think the tight end is a big strength. So it's in the margins, Pat. Yeah. It's definitely in the margins. Yeah. We've had the highest number of one-score games in the history of the NFL.
So. Believe
and
me.
You've seen a lot of these home teams in the playoffs stumble out of the gate. I mean, the Bills stumbled out of the gate. The Bengals stumbled out of the gate.
I agree, Sal. You're right about that. Look at the Bucs.
The Bucs.
Man, the Bucs didn't even get out of the gate.
They didn't even get out of the gate. So, Pat, I mean, and that's why it goes back to your question. Your question is spot on. Spot on. You got to start strong in this football game. Yeah. So I just asked our Evan Kaplan, our ESPN stats and information guru, about your question. He said the Eagles scored 89 points in the first quarter during the regular season, 7th in the NFL, but the defense gave up 84 points in the first quarter, which was 27th. So their plus 5-point margin in the first quarter was tied for 12th during the regular season. Right. So it wasn't that great, Pat.
No, the second quarter was their big quarter this year. But I just think in the playoffs, I think it's all going to come down, Sal, as you said a few minutes ago. It's number one. The difference between Hurts and Daniel Jones still has to be substantial enough. But
I don't think it's going to be.
no, I think you may be right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
Pat, I don't.
right.
I think Daniel Jones has totally elevated his game.
Yes.
He sees the field. He's very decisive. He's
Yeah.
got long legs, and
I
he
know.
can run, and he's
I
got
know.
speed.
I know.
So I would
I know.
say, boy, oh boy, watch out for Daniel Jones.
He carried the ball 8 times more than Barkley did last week for the Giants.
Oh, I was there. I remember.
Yeah,
I saw the whole thing. I
yeah.
interviewed him in the hotel. And here's the thing about Daniel Jones, and he's a lot like Jalen. He's a CEO.
Yeah.
When I interviewed him when he got drafted, when Gettleman drafted him, I interviewed him in the hotel the night before in Minneapolis, and then after the game, Pat, he was the same guy.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Good for him. Good for him. I'm glad. And boy, I'll tell you, Sal, what a time to get hot. Just as your entry-level contract is over and the team didn't pick up your option, the Giants are going to write a big check.
I know another thing your father told you, Pat, because my father told me, in life, timing is everything.
That's right.
How many times your old man said that to you,
plenty.
Pat?
All right, listen now. Speaking of timing, I only got a few minutes left with you, so let's get around here to these other 3 games. Just give me a sentence or two on how you think each is going to go.
All right, let's go.
Do you see Jacksonville with any kind of puncher's chance at Kansas City?
Well, they lost big in Kansas City, 27-17 in Week 10. And what was the key to that game? Patrick Mahomes converted 7 of 10 on third down on the money down at 70%. Most teams are happy to get 50% on third down.
Yeah.
If the Jaguars don't get Mahomes off the field on third down, they got no shot.
I agree. All right. And then Sunday, I was saying at the top of the show, just a great doubleheader of football here. A lot of talk, Sal. Cincinnati with a very good chance against, to me, Sal, this game Sunday, Josh Allen, 2 more interceptions last week. This game, to me, will rest on how many interceptions or turnovers Josh Allen foists upon his own team in that game Sunday afternoon.
Talk about 2 teams limping to the finish line. The Bengals almost lost at home to Ty Huntley.
I know.
The Bills almost lost at home to Skylar Thompson.
That's a fact.
Pat, 2 teams limping to the finish line.
I know.
Neither one of them can go to Kansas City and win.
I think the
Chiefs have, they get through these are 2 of the weakest games that Kansas City will have, the weakest opponents, I think.
And then the Sunday night game, a renewal of an old and very bitter rivalry, postseason anyway, between the Cowboys and the 49ers. 49ers have now won 11 straight, Sal. Dallas goes from looking awful against Washington to just hitting every cylinder last week against San Francisco. What do you think here?
I was on Get Up this morning with Mike Greenberg, and Rob Ninkovich, the old linebacker for the Patriots, was on the show. And he said the Cowboys were in a pillow fight against the Bucs. The Bucs threw it, like 97 times?
66 times. 66 passes.
That's a pillow fight. That's 7-on-7.
Yeah.
And now they're going to go out to San Francisco, where that DeMeco Ryans defense is going to hit them.
Yeah.
They're going to get McCaffrey left, McCaffrey right, Deebo Samuel on the sprint sweeps. I mean, it's going to be different. Micah Parsons is going to have his head on a swivel.
Yeah. That's going to be
I like the Niners in this game. I do.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's such an arrogant bunch, but I do believe San Francisco is coming here. I hope it's here, Sal. But we'll find out.
No. I'm rooting for the Cowboys to come in here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a repeat of the 80 championship game.
Yeah, that would be something. You're right about that. All right, well, listen, Sal Pao, would you believe that is it? That is it for the year. All right. I've used up all my Sal Pao for 2022-23, but I enjoyed having you on very much. You were outstanding as usual. And I'm going to look for you. We'll look for the matchup show, and we'll look for you all throughout the playoffs here on ESPN. All right.
Well, congratulations on a great year on This Week in Pro Football on JAKIB Media. I get tremendous positive feedback all over the place about the show, about JAKIB Media. It's been an honor, again, to be on with you, Pat, This Week in Pro Football. Pat, I do believe, Pat, This is the 20th year of our partnership together on radio and television.
It is. That's right.
You
Only
know,
about 20 more to go, Sal. Then that's
right.
it. I'm calling it quits. All right.
Well, you know, there's a big raise in my contract after the 20th. It's built into the deal, Pat. I hope you knew that, right?
I think I got one option. Year, Sal. So I'll have to check. I'll check and see. You can trust me. All right. All right, Sal. Thanks very much, pal. Best to you. All right. All right. The great Sal Paolantonio joining me there. Great discussion about this game. And you can tell Sal is really pumped up for this game. The fact that, and I guess it is good. It is great to see the Giants coming here, a division rivalry. But it's a much better Giant team than the one that the Eagles saw back in December when the Eagles beat them 48-22. We're going to talk about that at length with Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News. And we'll also get around. We'll talk about the Cowboys in San Francisco, see if Pat has any different take than Sal did about that game. We'll do all that next on This Week in Pro Football.
I grew up in a home, and I wanted my kids to have that. The process of buying a home seemed so daunting, but Christine and M&T believed in me. Everyone took an interest and helped me through the process. You don't get this kind of service everywhere. I closed on the house and I didn't tell the kids. They were like, oh, you got the key? You closed on the home? They were so happy. M&T Bank made this dream come true for me and my girls.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at UGIES.com.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@WhisPearl.com.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
It was late at night. I was browsing KennedyAuto.com when there was a knock at my door.
Hey, baby, what you doing?
Buying a car from John Kennedy Ford.
Online?
I let her in on the secret. KennedyAuto.com makes car buying easy. That got her attention.
Can I go for a ride?
Let me get my coat. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This week in pro football. Callahan joining you here on JAKIB Sports. Give me a follow at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. They talk NFL all the time. So and Philadelphia sports. Eagles Giants all time. I probably hit with this stat during the season. Coming into the 22 season, the Eagles and Giants had played each other 174 times. And in those 174 games, they had scored each the exact same number of points, 3,346. Eagles won twice this year. So But this is a rivalry that goes way back and has been extremely close. It's now 89-85 in favor of Philadelphia. How about we welcome in this gentleman from the New York Daily News and the Talking Ball podcast? That would be the great Pat Leonard. Pat, how you doing, pal?
Pat, I'm doing great, man. Playoff football, the I-95 rivalry, man. This is awesome. This is what I signed up for, right?
I know. It's great. It's great. You'll be down here in Philadelphia covering this game, I guess, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be down on Friday. Got some family in the Philly area, and
that's right.
So I'm going to plant my flag and be close to the link for my ride over there.
Careful about what flag you plant there, Pat. All right. All right. I'd plant a neutral flag. A neutral flag of some kind, probably a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. I think I got enough friends around there still. We'll find out, though. We'll find out.
That's right. You'll find out if the Giants win. If the Giants win, you'll see how many friends you got. All right, let me start with this, Pat. How confident it's obviously not the same Giant team that the Eagles on December 11th laid a 26-point whipping on. How confident do you sense New York is coming into Saturday night?
Pat, they're more confident than a team that has lost 11 of their last 13 against a rival should be. I mean, they are loose at their practice on Thursday, jumping around, dancing, Daniel Jones dancing in the middle of all the players as they're breaking it down. They are acting like a team that's playing with house money right now, and they don't like that narrative, but they very much are aware and a little bit satisfied that they have proven so many people wrong. They weren't even supposed to be in their last game, let alone in this game. So even though they got their doors blown off at home by the Eagles in that first meeting, they're not acting intimidated or afraid to be in this spot. That's for sure.
All right. Now that segues into my first quarter theory that you may have heard me talking about with Sal Paolantonio. And that is, I always think the pressure is on the higher seed in the first quarter and the home team to get an edge in the first quarter so the crowd doesn't start to turn or get restless and psychologically the players get a little nervous. Are you an adherent to that theory that if the Giants can win the first quarter by, say, it's 7-7 or it's 3-3, that's a big boost for them?
I agree. And I think more along the lines of if the Eagles commit a turnover and the Giants don't, and if the Giants go up 10-0 quickly, because Daniel Jones, for all these years, all these times with the Giants, a lot of times what would happen is you'd have one of those killer mistakes early, and then you were always playing catch up. And so if you're the Eagles right now playing at home, I know you can sense this, Pat, but even though the Eagles have been the best team in the league all season for the most part, there's this sense, I think, of a little bit of nervousness of how the game's going to start. And are the Eagles coming off this long week and this bye week going to, stomp out the Giants real quickly, right? So I think even if they're not playing poorly, if the Giants hang around early, I think you're going to start hearing the fans at the link start to, there's going to be that little buzz of, wait a second, are we letting these guys hang? Can they beat us, right? I do think that could happen.
There'll be a lot more than a little buzz, Pat. I can assure you that, especially being a night game. Because Eagle fans, I'm sure Giant fans are the same way. Eagle fans get there at 8 o'clock to tailgate for a 1 o'clock game. They'll get there at 8 o'clock to tailgate for an 8 o'clock game. So all they're going to do is add 7 hours to the tailgating.
Yeah.
That could be a.
I agree.
Close those press box windows there, Pat. I don't know. Okay, a word. Something else I'd mentioned to Sal, Pat, was the statistics were startling for the Giants last week against Minnesota. Saquon Barkley only 14 touches, and he had 9 carries compared to Daniel Jones 17. Now, how do you see the Giants' offensive game plan rolling out Saturday night?
Well, I think they need to run the ball more than they did against Minnesota, that's for sure, because the Eagles' pass defense, especially their pass rush, is better than Minnesota. So they're not going to be able to exploit it that way. I think the Eagles' defense is faster than Minnesota's, so then you're not going to be able to run Daniel Jones as freely as you did. So I think it's going to have to lean harder and more on Saquon Barkley. I think that they've actually succeeded and shown themselves to be a better offense recently by making Barkley a complement who can finish in the red zone and finish in the fourth quarter rather than putting it all on his shoulders. Now, that's because Daniel Jones has played so well. But I think from the Giants' standpoint, with Barkley, he has not had a 100-yard game against the Eagles since his rookie season. He's well aware of that. Okay. And even though he had a strong bounce back year, I think we're still waiting for his landmark performance to kind of reestablish himself. And so no better spot for him to do it. And I think the Giants are probably going to need him to do it in order to win this game, especially because, let's face it, even if the Giants defense plays pretty well, they're going to have a hard time getting Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense and their run heavy offense off the field. So you have to control the clock if you're the Giants just to keep your defense, give them a breather as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on all points there. And I was really surprised at how little Barkley seemed to touch the ball Saturday. But it's really been a trend of the Giants throughout the last half of the season is less reliance on him, more reliance on Daniel Jones. As you and I were joking about a couple weeks ago, Jones made himself a substantial amount of money last week in Minnesota. And I guess good on him because the Giants now, their hand is played. They have to pay this guy. And that's it. But I think the biggest difference, Pat, coming in now is tell me if you agree with this, is that from 48 to 22 is the margin, the qualitative margin between now a banged up Jalen Hurts and a rapidly maturing Daniel Jones and that Giant passing game has shrunk considerably.
Yes, that's how it appears, especially after they met in that last week and all the Giant starters sat and the Eagles' first stringers still did not pull away from the Giants' backups. I think that has to be in the back of everybody's mind.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of times at this time of year in the NFL, the teams that are the hottest are the ones that keep winning. And so the Eagles, as great as they have been all year, are not coming in like some red hot team, even though they had that bye. So I think when you mentioned Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones specifically, I think how Jalen Hurts plays in the first quarter is really going to set the tone for the entire game above anyone else in this rivalry. Because if he shows that he's running the same offense he was able to run back in week 6, 7, and 8, then I think the Giants are in trouble. But if he looks like the same guy who's kind of picking his spots with his runs, trying to avoid contact with the shoulder, I think the Giants are going to smell blood, and then it's anybody's ball game.
I agree. You want to throw a prediction out there, Pat Leonard?
Yeah, I think the Eagles win. I think the Eagles win. I'll say 30-20. Okay. I think that the Giants will not get embarrassed, but I do think that the Eagles will pull away enough that it will not be a nail biter in the fourth quarter.
All right. And one last question for you, looking around the end, because we've been talking about the NFC East all year. Are you sold now? Did the Cowboys actually turn it around that fast after that loss to Washington? Do you think they keep that momentum going into San Francisco, or do you think they're in for a very rude awakening?
That's a great question. I have to say, first of all, I didn't believe they were going to do it against Tampa. I have to give Mike McCarthy credit. I think their tight ends have been really good. Dalton Schultz, Lunda Wells, their coach, has done really well. And I think Dan Quinn, a veteran DC, going against a rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy, might keep the game close. But you also have Kyle Shanahan, who knows Dan Quinn's defense in and out, obviously coached underneath him. And I don't think the Cowboys win the game. I do have a little bit more respect for the fact that they can be in the game.
All right, Pat Leonard, listen, I appreciate it. You came on a few times this season. It was great every time you came on, and I really do appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you best of luck for the rest of the season over the summer. I look forward to talking with you again next year when we start this show up again, all right?
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And listen, when the NFC East is good, it's good for you. It's good for me. It's good for the NFL, right? So this is great stuff. Thanks again.
All right, Pat. Thanks a lot. Pat Leonard, New York Daily News, and the Talking Ball podcast. Please check that out. All right, when we get back, we're going to have a lively debate here. Two arch enemies who happen to run the sports gambling podcast are going to join me. That being Sean Green, Ryan Kramer. Sean, a diehard Eagles fan, as you've seen every week he's been on here wearing some version of Eagle Green. Ryan, a diehard New York Giants fan. So we'll get their take on that game and also their look around at both props and spreads on the other games. We'll do all that next right here on This Week in Pro Football.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com.
For the team at Cordasco Financial Network, a part of Mercer Advisors, financial planning is about more than just managing your money. They guide you in making retirement, tax, insurance, and estate planning decisions by creating a plan based entirely on your individual needs. Plus, Cordasco Financial Network professionals work one-on-one with business owners in creating and managing company 401k plans, IRAs, and defined benefit plans. They can help you maximize plan efficiency, ensure full regulatory compliance, and optimize tax obligations. Call 855-558-3500 or click the link in the description below to learn more. Let their team help you secure your future. 855-558-3500. Cordasco Financial Network is a trade name owned by Mercer Global Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Andrew Garrett Incorporated, which is not affiliated with Cordasco Financial Network or Mercer Advisors. Client experiences vary. Successful outcomes not guaranteed.
Johnny Apple's restaurant and bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back this week in Pro Football, Divisional Playoff Edition here. Pat Callahan joining you on JAKIB Sports. Just a couple other news and notes here. The Dallas leads San Francisco, the all-time postseason rivalry, 5-3. The teams met 6 times. They've met for the NFC title, including 3 years in a row, 92-94. These teams, postseason-wise, a lot of very, very high-spirited rivalry between those two teams. I sure as hell hope the Cowboys bring their A game against San Francisco Sunday night. And a couple of words about your Philadelphia Eagles. Let's bring on from the Sports Gambling Podcast these two learned gentlemen. That would be Sean Green, Ryan Kramer. Gentlemen, how you doing?
What's happening, Pat? Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both very much. I see you men are suitably attired here for this little grudge match. But what I was going to mention, the Eagles are only the third team since 1982 with 70 sacks as a team, and the first team since 1982 to have 4 different players produce 10 sacks in a season. Sean Green, how big a factor do you see that as opposed to the Giants and the game Daniel Jones had last week? Is he in for a little bit of a culture shock if he's going to throw that much against this Eagles team?
Rude awakening for Daniel Jones comes Saturday night at Lincoln Financial Field. I mean, I would criticize the Vikings defense, but I don't even know if that was a defense we saw out there against Daniel Jones. They just sit back, let him do whatever he want. They had no one spying him for his quarterback rushes. The Eagles have, I mean, one of the big surprises for the Eagles this season is how well their linebackers have played. So I think they're going to spy him, and they're going to bring a very intense pass rush. To your point, 70 sacks in one season is historic, and I don't think the Giants offensive line is ready for it.
All right, Ryan Kramer, do you have a rebuttal there? And what do the Giants have to do to win this game, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, it's Brian Dable, it's Mike Kafka. They've had their handcrafted artisanal offenses. And last week it was attack the pass defense for the Vikings. This week it almost certainly won't be that. And if I had to guess, we're going to see some Dan Jones on the ground, but we're also going to see a lot of Saquon Barkley. Only 9 carries last week. So I think they lean on him. I am worried about Evan Neal. I know a lot of people in Giants Twitterverse are looking to bench him because he played pretty horribly against the Eagles last time, hasn't been looking good. The rest of the line has looked pretty good. And I think if they can get the running game going, obviously that play action helps. And hopefully we can keep the 70 sacks to the regular season.
All right. Sean Green, I was preaching a lot of psychology earlier in the show about the seeming weight of the number 1 seed. The analogy I used was it's like basically trying to win or lead all 4 rounds of the Masters. It starts to weigh on you, I think. Do you see that as any kind of factor here, especially if the Giants get up early?
No, not at all. I mean, again, Jalen Hurts 18-2 as a starter his last 20 games, 14-1 this season. I understand there are higher expectations, but with that comes a fully rested team. I mean, that bye week helped him get Lane Johnson back. So right. I think any sort of like pressure or expectations, I like to say pressure is a privilege, and the Eagles are in a pretty privileged spot here as the number 1 seed. And I think they're going to be able to handle the pressure.
All right. Ryan, the Giants got tremendous pressure last week, rushing really only 4. They didn't blitz as much as Wink Martindale some will do. He was the most blitz happy defensive coordinator in the league this year. Is he going to have to commit more resources to get after Jalen Hurts?
I mean, with that offensive line, you would think so. And what Wink Martindale says is pressure breaks pipes. And I think, the way that Dexter Lawrence, the way that Big Cat Williams, the way that Kayvon Thibodeau, if Ojulari can stay on the field, they've been able to do it with just 4. And I think part of the reason we saw that approach last week against the Vikings is they didn't need to. They have Xavier McKinney back. They have Adoree Jackson back. So I could see a similar approach where it's all about let's take AJ Brown out of the game. Let's make sure Dallas Goedert in this running game doesn't kill us. And it could be rushing 4. And I really am curious to see another battle between Jason Kelce and Dexter Lawrence, because Dexter Lawrence is playing the best I've ever seen him play. And that undersized nature of Kelce could be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Lawrence, well, he played very well last week. Of course, it was Kirk Cousins. Somehow that's
you like that.
Yeah, you certainly do. All right, guys, let's deal with talking here with Sean Green, Ryan Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast. Men, how about just throw out for me a couple on each side here? What's the props you like best in this game, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's easy. It's Boston Scott, anytime touchdown. You can get it like plus 350 most places. He's played 8 career games against the Giants. He scored a touchdown in every game. He has 10 total touchdowns against the Giants. And then I think Dallas Goedert to score a touchdown as well. Not quite as good on the price, but to Ryan's point, like the Giants have really struggled with the tight ends. TJ Hawkinson had a very good game. On the other end, Dallas Goedert's never had a career touchdown against the Giants. He's due. He gets one come Saturday.
All right. Ryan, go ahead.
Pretty simple. I think you're getting a really low price for Saquon Barkley rushing yards at 69.5. I think they're going to lean on him. And I think, if he gets the 15 to 18 carries, that's plenty to get over there. And just to attack the matchup, Maddox looks like he'll be out, I think, for the Eagles. And so Richie James has been the slot man, has tremendous chemistry with Dan Jones. I love him to score an anytime touchdown at plus 330.
All right. I mean, they all sound good to me, man. They all do. I tell you the truth. I wanted to ask you guys, just as an aside, what was that a true story last week about this guy who put $1 million up on the Chargers at halftime to win 11,000? Was that true?
No. According to DraftKings, they confirmed it. I mean, there's there's so much easier ways to bet and win $11,000.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, go Wabba Wabba. I mean, that's just.
It's just the logistics of having $1.4 million in an online betting account is already like hey, what kind of individual are you that you have that kind of resource?
And of all the teams that you pick, hey, there's no way they're going to blow this game. God. You pick the Chargers.
You're exactly right, Sean. You're exactly right. Don't pick.
He didn't get the 1.4 million for betting on football because no sane person would bet that.
Speaking of that, gentlemen. We'll start with that one. I see you guys both like San Francisco minus the points against Dallas, and you both like Cincinnati plus the points at Buffalo. Shockingly, you differ on the Saturday night game. Give me what you each consider a final score here in this game. And Ryan, are you actually going to tell me that you think the Giants are going to win the game?
Well, I certainly am not going to be one of those people that comes on and gives you a final score where they cover the spread but don't win the game. I've been rolling it out all week, 28-26. Maybe it's a kicking snafu. I think to your earlier point, if the Giants do get up early, there will be some pressure because, not in the playoffs all over again. So yeah, 28-26. I do think there will be some points in this one, but Giants edge it out, 2-point victory. Let's go.
No. I'm going 35-17. Eagles win. They handle the Giants. I just don't think they're going to be able to slow down this Eagles offense. I think the offensive line is going to be able to get a push, and the defensive line is going to be able to pressure Daniel Jones.
All right. Now, will this partnership survive this game is the question. I mean, you can sense the rancor coming right through the screen here.
We got the studio split right down the middle with green and blue.
Look, it survived the Nate Sudfeld situation, so I think it can survive an actual playoff game where both teams are trying to win.
Well, if it can survive the Sudfeld, I guess it could survive anything, man. So, but listen, you guys, this is my last show of the year. I can't thank you guys enough for what you've added to the program and how much fun it was having you on. And I wish you guys all the success in the world. I know it's going to be a crushing letdown not coming on my show for the rest of the playoffs, but I certainly look forward to talking to you guys again when the 2023 season opens up.
Awesome. Always appreciate the time, Pat, and go Birds.
Worst of luck this weekend.
All right, man. Thanks very much. The great Sean Green, who was just a pleasure to have on all season, and Ryan Kramer filling in for him a few times. A great partnership there. Please check out the Sports Gambling Podcast. It's terrific. They got a terrific preview of Saturday night's game. It's worth investing the time to check that out. It's always worth the time checking out Gary Myers. And look at this. Look at this, Gary. I know you can see this already. There it is. Coaching Confidential, one of Gary's many books that he has written about the National Football League. And we'll get some wisdom from him when we get back here on This Week in Pro Football.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
UGI
First Bank is a true community bank with offices located throughout eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Being a First Bank customer comes with access to personal bankers, ones who know you and your business almost as well as you do. Joe Calabro is a regional president of First Bank and has been a leader and a lender in the southeastern Pennsylvania market for over 30 years. Call their Westchester office, 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com. Where do you tailgate when your team's away? Join Judd's and Jackson's at Spring Mill for their first ever Birds Tailgate Party on Sunday, September 25th, starting at noon under the tent. Enjoy a full tailgate buffet from only $26.95 per person, along with specials at the bar. Celebrate with friends cheering on our hometown team. Judd's and Jackson's at Spring Mill Athletic Club. Visit juddsdining.com for more details.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spent. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back here to This Week in Pro Football. JAKIB Sports, Pat Callahan joining you. Our final show of the 2022 season. So we need a valedictorian here, and why not bring this gentleman on to fill that role? That would be the long-time
valedictorian, geez.
New York Daily News and the Dallas Morning News, and one of the first regulars on Inside the NFL, and that's the author of this great book here, Coaching Confidential, which I'm just finishing now, but I recommend it to anybody. They're still available, even though I know, Gary, you said it last week. You wrote this 10 years ago, but so what? Still a great book. Everybody check out all of Gary's books. Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just really bummed this is the last show. What happens if the Eagles keep on winning? There's going to be a public outcry for more.
There might be. I'm thinking there'll be some sort of popular acclaim, and I will be brought back in here on some motorized vehicle. But for now, Gary, this is it. So I gotta fill in all this stuff in the next whatever I got, 14 or 15 minutes with you. So here we go. Let me just start with this. What I referred to in my notes to you as the NFL's persistent toothache. And it's not going away. And that is the officiating. There were 2 more, what I consider to be egregious call. Well, one was a call, the other was a non-call. Well, give me your thoughts on those 2 plays, the Lawrence sack against Kirk Cousins, and then the non-call on Hubbard's fumble return and the apparent block in the back on Mark Andrews.
Well, I mean, for sure, even with these, I would call it heightened security on protecting the quarterbacks. Dexter Lawrence was not roughing the passer on that play against Kirk Cousins. I mean, if they want to play 2-hand touch, Pat, just call it for what it is. Mm-hmm. If they want to play flag football, stick a flag in the hip pocket of these quarterbacks. But don't try to sell this as NFL football. With hard hitting and tackling, when if you breathe on the quarterback now, you're going to draw a flag. It's such an overcorrection of what needed to be done. Yeah. I agree. In most cases, the quarterbacks are defenseless and they're the stars of the game, and you don't want to be playing with third string quarterbacks like the Ravens and the Dolphins were last week.
Yeah.
Especially in the playoffs. But come on. Every rule that's been voted on in recent years has been to the advantage of the offense to try to increase scoring because they figure that will up the TV ratings, in turn get some more TV money from the networks. But it's just gotten to the point that it's just so absurd that it's almost not worth talking about. They just need to change something.
Yeah.
As far as the Hubbard play, I mean, that was just a blatant shove in the back. I'm not sure what the officials were looking at the time, but they certainly weren't looking at that play.
Right.
Now he might have scored anyhow.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there's going to be a push in the back, a block in the back, then how can you not call it on that play?
I agree because it was just that transparent. I certainly agree with you. And I'll tell you what else, that the Lawrence sack and your point about it. Well, we don't want these Skylar Thompson playoff games. Well, you know what the NFL has to do, Gary? They need to develop more quarterbacks. You and I have talked about this throughout the season at various times. Is that the NFL has a quarterback problem, and that because they had to play 67 quarterbacks this year in the NFL, and they don't have enough good ones. And I think the league's going to have to start investing some money. I don't know how to do it, but they need to get this position beefed up.
You know, Pat, I've always contended that on a good team, the backup quarterback is one of the 5 most important players because you don't want the whole thing falling apart if your quarterback goes down. And I mean, how many teams in the league now can you say good teams that the backup quarterback is a top 5 player? Nobody. I mean, it was Chad Henne in Kansas City, and they just go through the whole list.
I know. I agree with you. I agree. So I think the NFL has an issue there. Gary, it's fitting that today is the 21st anniversary of the tuck rule. And because it also then is really, you could say, is the 21st anniversary of the origin of Tom Brady. And what I wanted to talk with you about in this little discourse is Monday night. I thought Brady just did not. I mean, the Buccaneers, they've looked disinterested half the season, and they looked like they had checked out. 66 pass attempts by Brady in that game against Dallas. Give me your thoughts on where's Brady right now, and do you see him coming back for another season?
Well, first of all, I thought that his end zone interception, that if he threw a touchdown or they scored there and they kicked the extra point, they're up in that game, and who knows if it would have been different.
Agreed.
I mean, it's impossible to tell. They got so outplayed, but I thought that sucked the life out of them. It's the first red zone interception he's thrown in 3 years, and I get they went down the field pretty easily on that drive, and then to get nothing out of it, with a chance to take the lead because Brett Maher was putting on a kicking exhibition, a clinic.
True, a clinic. Put on a kicking clinic is right.
Yeah. But Pat, you know what he looked like the other night? He looked like a 45-year-old quarterback.
Yeah.
And he's 45 years old.
Yeah.
And it just looked to me that he's done.
Yeah.
I know the offensive line's been terrible. They've had no running game, although they completely gave up on the running game.
They did
before they had to. I thought that their rookie running back made some nice plays, and it never gave Fournette a chance to be playoff Lenny
against the team that you could run on, Gary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there were more balls that he was just throwing in the dirt to avoid getting sacks and missing receivers. And I'm tired of hearing about he wasn't on the same page with Mike Evans. This is 3 years in a row. I mean, 3 years that they've played together.
Right.
In the last regular season game, not counting the Atlanta game when they sat a bunch of the regulars, but he threw 3 long touchdown passes to Mike Evans. He looked on the same page that day.
Yeah.
To me. I just, I like Tom a lot personally. Obviously, I think he's the greatest quarterback in NFL history. I just think that he's done. There just reaches a point where the skill set, no matter how good a shape he's in, it just diminishes. He doesn't want to get hit anymore. He always complained about getting hit, but now, he just goes down in a heap when there's any pressure.
Now, and you talked about the pivotal point in that game was that pick he threw, and he was just getting rid of that ball. And he just, for some reason, he didn't put any air beneath the ball. I assume he was trying to throw it out of the end zone.
He said he was trying to throw it out.
Yeah. But you're certainly right. He turned his back on that ball the second he let it go.
That's right. And, I mean, Tom still has a really strong arm, and the fact that he couldn't get that ball out of the end zone and, into the second deck of that stadium. Really, you're right. He bailed out on that play.
Right.
Instead of taking the hit, following through and then taking the hit, he just tried to avoid the hit.
I know.
And put nothing on that. I mean, it just floated into the end zone.
It's a shame, but it's just like a boxer. I just think about now, hindsight being 2020, it does look like maybe Tom hung around at least one season too long.
Yeah.
All right, Gary, let's touch base now on what is a very exciting situation here. This town is abuzz about this Eagle-Giant game. I'm sure that New York is too. Just tell me, in your opinion, how different a team is this Giants team from the one the Eagles ran out of New Jersey on December 11th, 48-22?
Yeah, well, the biggest difference right now is that Adoree Jackson, their best corner, and Xavier McKinney, their safety, who both missed the first game against the Eagles. They're both going to play Saturday night. They both played in Minnesota, and that's half the starting secondary, and they're both really good players. In fact, you saw Adoree Jackson hold Justin Jefferson to under 50 yards in Minnesota. So to me, personnel-wise, that's the biggest difference. But clearly, to me, the biggest difference is the confidence that Daniel Jones is playing with now. Now, I'll be honest with you. I voted for Kyle Shanahan for Coach of the Year, going undefeated with the last pick in the draft at quarterback. And having what I consider to be the best team in the league after the regular season. He got my vote. I voted Dable second. I debated in my head for a good while about that one. But the job that Brian Dable has done with Daniel Jones might be the best individual coaching job that any coach has done with one player that I can remember in a very long time. The Giants were so down on Jones they didn't pick up the fifth-year option. Yeah. And now the stories are going that they're going to have to pay him $40 million a year.
I know.
Or just franchise him.
Yeah.
Now, listen, the Eagles' defense is far superior to Minnesota's at every one of the three levels. And he's not going to be able to do against the Eagles what he did against Minnesota. But I do believe he's going to be much better against Philly than he was in that first game. And I think that Barkley is going to be a really important player in this game because the Eagles pass rush with four players with double-digit sacks. I think he's going to have to be an outlet pass receiver a bunch of times, and he is a very good receiver.
Yeah.
So I would look at a big helping of Saquon on Saturday.
Yeah, there is the Giants receivers, and I'll give Gary Myers credit. You said this all along that Daniel Jones was a much better quarterback than the Giants personnel guys were letting him be. These receivers had a nice week last week. I was saying 16 receptions for 200 yards. So they did a heck of a job last week. But now, as you mentioned, they're facing a team 70 sacks by the Eagles. I think if the Eagles get up on the Giants early, Gary, it could be a long night. I've said this the whole show about number one seeds. If they get up fast and take advantage of that bye, they can bury whoever they're playing. If they don't get up fast, then you got a tiger by the tail, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to give the other team confidence, but I'm also a believer in the momentum you carry into the playoffs. And the Eagles, they lose those two games that Hurts didn't play, and then I thought the final score in the final game against the Giants was a little deceiving because Eagles had a big lead, and the Giants made it close at the end. Right. But it was against the Giant backups,
right?
And Hurts was back in that game, and he didn't look quite the same as he did prior to the injury. No. I don't know how bad his shoulder is still hurting him and what effect that will have. But the Giants, played great against the Colts, as most teams do, in the game that clinched the playoffs for them. And then, like I mentioned, they played their backups in the final game and then just played a dynamite game against the Vikings in the playoffs. Now, they only won by 7. Minnesota lost by 37 at home to Dallas.
Yeah.
They lost by 17 on the road to the Eagles.
Right.
So if you just go believe in comparative scores, which isn't always accurate, the Giants, were forced to play a much closer game against Minnesota than the Eagles or Dallas did. So, I mean, I think that the Giants have a really good chance on Saturday night if, as you mentioned, Pat, they don't fall behind early because they're not explosive enough to make up.
I agree. And I really, if Hurts is healthy, remember that last week of the season, the Eagles played them. I think it was a very vanilla game plan by the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
I expect a much more exotic looks this Saturday night, but that's going to come down to me. It's that first quarter game. I hope Hurts is perfectly healthy for that game, and they're not still.
It's funny in that last game, Dable had a fake punt and an onside kick when you wouldn't necessarily expect it.
Yeah,
I think he was putting that stuff on tape to give the Eagles something to think about in case they go play again.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Gary, by the way, Gary presented by the great folks at M&T Bank, Gary Myers. Give me a quick prediction on this game. I think Philadelphia is going to win the game. Because I think they will get off to a quick start. I think Philadelphia wins. How do you see this game?
Listen, people that know me and that read me over the years know the last thing I am is a homer. In fact, I was criticized a lot by my readers for not getting on bandwagons.
That's right.
It wasn't my job to get on bandwagons.
Yeah.
But I do think, I just sense this one, that the Giants are going to win a game by 3 points or, something around that. And that'll be the end of their run. In 07 and 11, every week during the postseason, I picked the Giants to win because I could just sense it by being around them.
Yeah.
And I've done this long enough that I think I have a good feel for it.
Yeah.
Now, I could be entirely wrong about Saturday night, and you could be right. They get off to a big start and Giants, lose their heart.
It's a replica of 07. Giants won their first game that year and then went to Dallas against the number 1 seed Cowboys and beat them by getting an early touchdown. And I think that unnerved Dallas.
You know what I'm really interested to see, Pat? I don't mean to interrupt you there, but when the Eagles play up here at MetLife Stadium, there was a ton of Eagle fans.
Yeah.
That get the tickets on the secondary market or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really curious
to
see how many Giant fans drive down the turnpike.
That'd be very interesting, Gary.
Stadium.
And God bless those fans if the Giants manage to win. God bless them because they better get out of there. They're going to need some of Geraldo Rivera's automatic rifle 15s to get out of there.
If they're smart, they'll wear green and they won't cheer during the game. They'll just sit there and
that's a good idea.
Nod their heads.
Dallas at San Francisco, Gary. Sal Pao thought that the 49ers are just going to methodically beat Dallas down. The 49ers look like a really tough out, don't they?
Yeah, I think the 49ers right now are the best team in the league. And I felt that way. And I think I told you that a few times over the course of the second half of the season. See, what's funny about the Cowboys is after they lose to Washington in the last game of the year, everybody jumped off the bandwagon. Oh, the Cowboys stink. And, they're going to lose again. They're going to lose to Tampa.
Right.
So they dominate just a horrendous Tampa team.
Right.
Poorly coached everywhere, including the head coach who hung on to his job, but seemed to have fired everybody else. So the Cowboys beat a team that was 8-9 and dominate them, spanked them. And now everybody, the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. Well, they just beat a team that was under 500.
I know. Very true.
Yeah. And the only reason people gave Tampa a chance in that game is because the Cowboys hadn't won a road playoff game in 30 years.
Yeah, only 30 years. It's not like it's a trend or anything. Yeah,
no.
But you're right. You're right about that one. So we agree on that one.
But I'll tell you what, it'll really be amazing. A Dallas at Philly NFC Championship game. I wouldn't want to be within 40 miles of that stadium. I just don't think it'll be safe to be within 40 miles of that stadium.
Yeah.
And all the grocery stores in Philly will be running out of eggs before the game because all the fans are throwing it at the Cowboy buses.
Yes. Does Jacksonville have any kind of puncher's chance against Kansas City Saturday afternoon?
No, I don't think so. I think the season is a success for Jacksonville. I never, ever believe that you play with house money. That I hate that expression because you never know when you're going to get back to this point again.
Right.
So you got to take advantage of every opportunity.
Exactly. Because the Giants could be doing the same thing, Gary.
Yeah, I don't think that's the mindset, and it can't be because who knows on the Giants who's going to be back next year?
I agree.
And you never know.
You never know if all the dominoes are going to line up the same way.
All these teams left are in the final 8, and do I have that right? Yeah, the final 8. And it's hard to get to this point. You first got to make the playoffs. Unless you're the 1 seed, you got to win your first round game. So you can't take getting back for granted.
For granted, it's certainly right.
And as a result, there's no house money.
Yeah.
And anybody who says that is completely ignorant,
right,
and has no feel for how professional players approach this.
And the final game, Gary, that we'll talk about, Buffalo hosting Cincinnati. And there's a lot of talk about this game that the Bengals really might be the better team. But actually, both teams are kind of stumbling coming into this game off of subpar performances, I thought, in the wild card round. Who do you like here?
Well, Cincinnati struggled the last 2 games against Baltimore, playing them back-to-back.
Right.
Struggled against the Ravens' third-team quarterback. And Buffalo struggled against Miami's third-team quarterback.
5th-team quarterback is what Thompson should have been.
Goodness.
You're right.
So neither one of these teams are entering the game with any momentum or really on a roll. You wonder if DeMar Hamlin makes an appearance on the sidelines.
Yeah.
How much that inspires the Bills. I know he's been around the facility this week. There's a lot. It's not the history, but a lot of emotion, I think, potentially can carry over for both these teams, seeing each other so soon after that, near tragedy, January 2nd in Cincinnati. I really think this is going to be a tremendous game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah,
I think Buffalo will win it, though.
All right. I think Cincinnati has a real good chance to win this game. I just don't trust Josh Allen. He's good for 2 interceptions a week.
And in the red zone, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, Gary Myers, unfortunately, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for you and me for this season. I really appreciate you joining me all season long. It was great having you on. And I can't wait for that the book to come out, Always a Giant. And Once a Giant. Once a Giant. Right. Once a Giant. And look forward to that. It's not out, though, it's still, what is it, September?
September 12th. It's Once a Giant, a story of victory, tragedy, and life after football. And like I've told you a couple times, it's about the Giants, but it could really be about any team whose players are now in their 50s and 60s and what they're facing physically, emotionally, financially, mental health issues. It's by far the best book that I've written, just because the material I have is so tremendous. Never been told stories. And I think it'll resonate with everybody.
I always look forward to that, and certainly look forward to this book. So, Gary,
Pat,
thanks again.
It's been a pleasure doing this with you.
All right.
In all sincerity, I've really enjoyed this.
All right, Gary. Thanks very much. Look forward to talking to you again next year. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. The great Gary Myers joining me. Xander, can you bring up that schedule just one more time or for the weekend games? And then I will promise, Xander, I'll get you out of here. But here we go. This is it for the divisional weekend. Jacksonville, Kansas City. They always take the worst game and stick that on Saturday afternoon. That's a given. And that game is the worst game. I think the Chiefs have no trouble against Jacksonville. Then the Eagles game, we've talked about that absolutely ad nauseum here on this program. I think could be a really good game, but hopefully Philadelphia prevails. Sunday, 3:00, Cincinnati, Buffalo. I like the Bengals. Everybody likes San Francisco, though, to beat Dallas, unless Dak Prescott can reprise what he did on Monday night. The only chance I think Dallas has in that game is Prescott materially outperforms Brock Purdy. Sooner or later, I guess the real Brock Purdy is going to show up. So far, nope. All right, that'll do it. That'll do it for tonight, and that will do it for this week in pro football. I want to thank Xander Krause very much for producing all season long. I want to thank Sal Pao for joining me for this season. Pat Leonard, the New York Daily News, Gary Myers, Sean Green, Ryan Kramer, Tim McManus, everybody else who came on. I can't forget Tony Cotillo, who joined me for the fantasy segment, and look forward to having all those guys back next year. I look forward to having you back next year when we come at you again for the 21st season of This Week in Pro Football. Good night.